This is the boss that that will always find the positive in everything. This is the boss that will turn a situation around and make everyone feel that there's hope. And it's the positiveness in this leader that now influences everyone to feel, okay, we're going to manage this. We're going to get through this. Then you have the leaders that adversely affect the emotional climate of their organization by creating a situation of dissonance in which members of the organization will feel frustrated and fail to operate at maximum efficiency. We see this a lot, and this is when it's more of a fear-based culture. And these are bosses that are constantly not trusting their people. They're constantly thinking the worst. They're constantly spying on you, what you're doing. They want you to get there really early. I know of a boss that will schedule meetings at 8:30 in the morning, so everyone can be there. And then at 8:25, he's not even there. He'll just email everyone and tell them the meeting is postponed. Just because he wants everybody there at 8:30, even though he's not there and there's no meeting. It's his fear of people not coming to work on time. All that causes distrust. So it's his distrust in his people for no reason that now causes the people to distrust him, each other, and the organization. So emotions are very contagious, and this is all part of emotional intelligence. So how does it have a leadership impact? Well, let's see. I want you to think of a good boss, okay, in your lifetime. The characteristics, when I think about a good boss, he or she did the following things well. So I want you to think, what did they do well? I took this example and I said, well, my feelings, they made me feel supported. They were there for me if I needed them. And they made me feel that I was not alone. They made me feel like they can help me and that we were a team. We worked together as a unit. This is how it made me feel. Not how I acted, but how I felt. It made me feel supported. It made me feel safe, and it made me trust my boss, and it made me trust my colleagues, and it made me trust the organization that was looking out for me. What were my actions? As a result, I behaved in the following way. And then you talk about usually how you behaved is you gave your all. You want to make them proud. You don't want to disappoint them because the experience you had with them was positive. Now, the characteristics of a bad boss. When I think about a bad boss, he or she did the following things well. This is how it made me feel. Not how I acted, but how I felt. It usually made me feel disappointed. It usually made me feel like not supported. And because of that, I behaved in the following way. And usually I disengaged. I didn't want to take part of. I didn't trust. So how a leader treats their people is an exact reflection of how the people will feel at work. And this is why it's so important that your emotional intelligence, that you're always managing your emotions. Now, emotional intelligence is a lifetime journey. While the foundation is laid down in the first 4 years, while you're a baby, the foundation is laid down. With intentional focus and participation in positive relationships and you practicing all the time, the plasticity of your brain, of the brain supports continuing development through life, which means you can change your brain waves. That means with disciplined, conscious practice, we can build new brain pathways just like we can build our bodies. Think about your bodies and your muscles. Let's just say you haven't built your muscles, you never worked out, and you decided you're going to compete for a fitness championship. You go and you work out 5 times a week, you eat well, and with all this practice, your muscles start building and they start strengthening. And next thing you know, you're ready for the competition. This is exactly what can happen with emotional intelligence. With awareness and conscious practice, with techniques that you're going to learn today, you could build your emotional intelligence to the optimum level, and you can be a very emotionally intelligent leader. Okay, understanding emotional intelligence and making a difference now. The core capacities of emotional intelligence are self-reflection, self-regulation, and empathy. Okay, the 3 emotional capacities: self-reflection, The first one is supposed to say it's self-awareness, self-reflection, and empathy. We have self-reflection twice. It's supposed to be self-awareness. They form the foundation for all competencies and skills. They provide the abilities to adjust to change, maintain commitments to people, find satisfaction in relationships, and create balance in our emotional lives. The presence or absence of these capacities will determine your effectiveness as a leader. Okay? Your empathy, your self-awareness, and your self-regulation, and we're going to go through them right now, will determine your effectiveness as a leader. So let's talk about self-awareness and self-reflection. Self-reflection is the ability to identify feelings, sensations, thoughts, values, motivations, pleasures, discomforts, and wants, and put them into words. Okay? It is the ability to observe yourself while functioning. In other words, you are irritated. You're able to say, wow, I'm really irritated right now. You can name it. You can observe it and you can name it. It is a capacity to think about one's thinking and say, wow, I just identified that I'm irritated. So you are now thinking about your thinking. And it is the capacity to be aware of what you are feeling or wanting or experiencing while you are actually doing it. So in the moment, you can call it and name what you're feeling. That's the first step of self-awareness and self-reflection. Okay? The capacity is critical for discernment and for making informed choices, because now that you have this self-awareness and self-reflection, you can now choose how you want to act, choose what you're going to do about it. So the sequence is, number one, awareness of oneself in the moment. This is what I call action coaching, when you're being coached in the moment. Number two, reflecting on oneself, tolerating whatever one is experiencing, or reframing it. In other words, and I'll tell you right now, and reflecting on the implications and possibly the source of one's reaction. What that means, let's say, for example, let's take the I'm irritated factor. Example, you're able to say, wow, I'm irritated right now. Okay. And instead of keeping it there and saying, I'm going to tolerate it and I'm going to act on it in the following way and still be irritated, you can actually reframe it and say, wow, I just realized that I'm irritated. That's really cool that I can identify it now. Now that I can identify it, I can actually control it, and I'm not going to allow it to act out in any which way. Okay? And then you make a choice on how you're going to act on whatever it is that you're feeling, and you move to an informed choice of however you're going to act. My recommendation is that you reframe it instead of tolerating it. Because when you tolerate something, you're not able to be free of it. It still controls you and you're just trying to find a way to get through it. And so your emotions and your energy is not positive. It's still restraint. It's still negative. Even though you're not acting on it, people can feel you're irritated. If you reframe it in a positive way, whatever it may be, you can then be free of it controlling you, and you can be free and you can actually see it as an experience or however you reframe it. I'm sorry, let's see. There was something else there. When a person can reflect with self-awareness, it opens the possibility of informed or conscious choice. See, you can't choose to act a certain way if you don't know what you're feeling, if you can't identify what you're feeling. You have to be able to first identify it, and then you can choose how you're going to act on it. Okay, when self-reflection is missing, this is what it looks like. Individuals, you have a difficulty learning from your experience, particularly during conflict and when you feel at risk. You blame others. This is a typical behavior. You have a victim-based mentality and victim-based statements. They have to begin like, if only they, if only she or he. You need to take responsibility for the situation, and you need to say, hey, I have a choice on whether or not I'm going to respond to this person or how I'm going to respond to this person. There's reactionary behavior that is common, ranging from intense, volatile anger to withdrawal. Sometimes people just withdraw, and that's how they're acting out their emotions. You have great difficulty understanding that you choose the way you're responding to any situation. No situation controls you. You choose how you will respond to it. But you can't choose unless you feel in control, and you can't be in control unless you know and are able to name what's going on with you. Honest and open, direct debriefing of a situation is difficult because you have a difficult time reflecting on how you co-created this outcome. You don't take any responsibility. Everything that happens in our life, whether work or personal, we contribute to it. Whether it's by being silent, whether it's by saying certain things, it doesn't mean that we're right or wrong. It just means that we co-created the outcome, whatever it may be. There is limited or no ability to self-correct in the middle of a stressful, unexpected, or difficult situation. You cannot self-correct because you're not even aware of what is going on with you. So only when you're aware can you actually take a step back and self-correct, which is a way to start practicing emotional intelligence. This is often pronounced under stress and can place the organization at great risk. In other words, if you're just responding to how you're feeling without acknowledging what's going on and why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Now, let's look at when self-reflection is highly developed in individuals. What does it look like? So these are positive and examples of what self-reflection looks like. They can focus on and observe themselves in the midst of fray of business life as it occurs. At the moment, they know exactly what's going on. They know what they're feeling. They can name it. They're able to say to themselves, I'm anxious about this meeting. I'm being defensive right now. I need to listen to what this person is saying. Or I'm angry, so I need to be careful about how I initiate this conversation. These comments all illustrate examples of self-reflection and action. So they're able to identify what they're feeling, and they're able to manage it because what they're going to say or what they're going to do about it. They can also adjust their behavior in mid-course. Unlike the rocket that is aimed to initial target without an adjustment device, these individuals have adjustment devices. Okay, these ones that are highly developed in self-reflection. They can change in mid-course because they can continually assess themselves and observe themselves in mid-course. So now they are in control of how they express their feelings and emotions. Okay, self-regulation and self-soothing. Self-regulation is the ability to regulate the uncomfortable feelings, which include both positive and negative feelings. So you're able to now, you're feeling your emotions. It may be overwhelming, but now you can self-regulate or self-soothe. Well, self-soothing is a way of self-regulating. You can make yourself feel better. For example, a perfect example is when you're trying to train a baby to sleep in their crib, and they say you have to let them self-soothe themselves when they're crying. They have to find a way to manage themselves to go back to sleep. They have to find a way that they don't just cry themselves back to sleep. They start self-soothing whatever they're feeling, and they kind of figure it out. Well, as adults, we have tools, thank God, to figure out how to self-soothe. When a person relates to their family or colleagues, painful feelings can be triggered. One might feel hurt, angry, disappointed, embarrassed, humiliated, anxious, fearful, distressful, or rage. These feelings are disquieting. They take a person out of their comfort zone and into a state of disequilibrium. People who can handle high stress, complexity, and conflict, and who can remain in positive relationships have a well-developed capacity for self-soothing. So it's a way to regulate yourself. It's a way to remind yourself, hey, if this is the worst thing that's happening to me, I'm okay. I have a tendency to self-soothe all the time. When something bad happens, I always think, wow, if this is the worst thing that can happen to me, I'm okay. Like if I forget something, I'm like, it could be worse. I can have been in a car accident and never get here. I mean, because it's not that bad. And I have to be able to get over it quick. So I say, if this is the worst thing, then I'm okay. And I will recover. Leaders and self-regulation. When self-regulation is missing in leaders, this is what it looks like when you don't have self-regulation. You cannot hear or accept information that is negative or makes you feel uncomfortable about yourself. They will deny it is true, discount, or blame others. So you can't make fun of yourself. You can't hear or accept anyone, teasing you or just saying anything, confronting you in a very respectful way. You can't even accept that. You will get upset with others and act out in a variety of ways that are harmful to the relationship, and you will often sabotage the outcomes that you're striving for. You will put pressure on getting others to change as a method to reduce your feelings of discomfort. It will be important for you that people agree with you. It will be important for you that people don't oppose you. You need their acceptance in order to feel okay. And this is a big sign that they are not okay with themselves, because they need you to be okay with them. When someone's okay with themselves and they self-regulate, they don't need you to agree with them. They don't need you you can oppose them and they can respectfully say, we just disagree. We agree to disagree and be okay with it. It will impact others in a way that makes them feeling undervalued, dismissed, and not heard. Others learn not to be the bearer of bad news. This results in isolation of the person without this capacity. They can't come talk to you. They feel that they don't know how you're going to respond because you can't self-regulate. You blow up or you break down. And this is a sign of, it shows that you're not emotionally evolved, emotionally developed. Okay. When self-regulation is highly developed in leaders, leaders can listen to an employee who is blaming and are able to manage themselves sufficiently to continue relating to the employee and working to resolve the problem. They don't take things personal. When you're unevolved, when you are highly self-regulated, you don't take things personal. You welcome all news without censorship. This helps the leader to recognize and reflect on negative or disturbing information that is important to the success of the business relationship. And you allow others to freely be and be valued for who they are. Once again, they don't have to agree with you to be valued. You can value them for who they are. And you enjoy positive relations with others while getting more accurate information. The next element of being able to be an emotionally intelligent leader is your ability to have empathy. Empathy is the number one trait of influence. And influence is the definition of a leader. If a leader cannot influence, they're not a true leader. And in order to influence, you have to have strong empathy. So empathy is the ability to identify and understand another person's emotional experience or state. Empathy is so extremely important. It's so important to be empathetic. It does not imply that we change another person's experience or actions. Empathy provides team members, managers, and leaders the ability to understand one another and to allow themselves to be impacted by what others are experiencing. It doesn't mean sympathy and empathy are different. Sympathy is when you're like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Oh, well, gotta go. Bye. That's sympathy. Empathy is, I could only imagine how you are feeling. And you kind of experience, even though you may not have experienced what they're going through, you can only imagine it. So you're like feeling with them. You're there with them in that space. And you're allowing yourself to say, gosh, if there's anything I can do. It's not telling them that you understand how they feel, because most of the time they know you don't. Measures of empathy. The degree to which one can read others' emotional experiences from their words, facial expressions, and other nonverbal cues. It's being able to understand when someone is not doing well, when something is wrong, and being able to stop and say, is something going on? Are you okay? It's being able to pick up on those cues. The ability to understand what another person is experiencing. The ability to understand and appreciate someone who is different from oneself. And the ability to listen to another person share what he or she is thinking, feeling, and or wanting in order to understand what might be going on in that person's head without needing them to change. When you're empathetic, you're not trying to make them feel better. You're not trying to change their experience. You're not, you're honoring what they're feeling. and you're allowing them to feel it. Once again, you're honoring what they're feeling. You're validating it. You're saying it has value by just acknowledging it. When empathy is missing in the workplace, leaders don't listen. So if you have a leader that doesn't listen, they lack empathy. They can become isolated and out of touch with the people who are following them. Team members don't listen and become disconnected from their other team members. The individual experience is not recognized or appreciated. They just don't appreciate you because they're not empathetic. They feel that that's what you have to do. That's your job. Differences are dismissed and have no value. If you don't think like them, then there's no value in how you think. There's a gap that grows between the party line about what is real for people. Diversity of opinion is not sought or valued. The benefit of using the intelligence of the whole is lost. So basically, they don't see the value in what you bring. They want you to be a robot and just do what they say. Seeking input from others is typically a strategic move to gain position or power. In other words, they're doing it because they feel they have to, but they're really not going to take anything you say into consideration. And people do not feel acknowledged or honored. And people believe that they do not count and often feel used and definitely not appreciated. Now, individuals with highly developed empathy, and there's quite a few slides, so you're going to be able to take this. So I'm just going to go through some of these so we can get through this. Individuals with highly developed empathy can relate to people who are similar and are different because they can value them. They can value other people's opinions and they don't have to accept them as their own because they have a really strong sense of self and know that other people are not better than them or worse than them. They're just different but equal. Different but equal. Okay, now targeting development efforts to achieve the greater results. You can develop your emotional intelligence, and I'm going to show you how. Daily practices for self-reflection. It's all about awareness and choice. Number 1, notice your judgments about yourself and your judgments about others. Work towards suspending your judgments and just appreciating the life within and around you. This will become easier with practice. You have, in order to be empathetic, you have to release your judgments. Because if not, people can feel that energy and they won't feel you're empathetic. They'll feel like you're judging them. Practice noticing and naming your experience. Notice and name your feelings, your wants, and your thoughts. Stop and say, okay, what am I thinking right now? Be aware of what your body's feeling. You have to really get to know yourself emotionally and physically and being able to name what it is that you're experiencing, because this will help you then make wiser decisions. You might not know that every time your boss walks around, you tense up. So let's just say you realize that you're feeling tense and you say, why am I feeling so tense? And you said, oh my gosh, my boss just came into the office. Then the next day you realize again that you're tense and you're like, well, what just happened? My boss. So after 5 days, you realize that every time your boss comes into the office, you're tensing up. So there's something going on there that you may not even be aware. So this way, then you start thinking maybe it's because every time my boss comes in here, he tells me something negative. So I'm getting tense. So then you start identifying what's going on and why maybe you're not working to your ultimate level. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Notice other people as mirrors of yourself. Our experience, attitudes, and feelings are contagious. How are people acting towards you? I tell my clients and my students, I want you for one day just to be extremely positive. I want you to smile. I want you to be just think happy thoughts. I want to see how people respond to that. And it's a test for themselves. And they realize that people are attracted to them much more. Then I have other students not interrupt all day. That's like their task. And they realize that people respect them more after. So start testing yourself by putting yourself through different disciplines on a daily basis and say, today I'm going to make sure and ask others how they're really doing. Like really how they're doing, not just how are you doing, but how are you really doing? Everything okay? And see how people respond to you. Practice awareness of the stories that you are creating in your own mind, which are your interpretation of any situation. They are unique to you. Without discovering the stories that you create and making space to create new ones, you are destined to repeat or recreate your past. Practice unbundling your feelings. When you feel anger, notice the feelings below the anger and the origin of those feelings. For example, if you, I don't know, if you're walking down the street and someone says hello to you and you kind of feel not happy about it, you're like, why did I get angry or bothered when that person said hello? And it may be that that person reminded you of someone that you didn't like. And you realize that your emotions transfer from one thing to another. So you may be reacting to people in a way that you don't want to react only because they remind you of something else and it triggers something else. And unless you know that, you're going to continue to respond in a certain way. Notice the degree to which your emotion, thoughts, and wants are positive or negative. To self-regulate, daily practices are the strategies below are focused on building high trust in oneself, which is critical for effective relationships and building trust in the other. So, number one, practices for building trust, self and the other. Practice inviting feedback from others. Ask people, I always tell my students, ask people, am I responding to you in a way that makes you feel comfortable? And say, I really want to know the truth. I'm really focused on developing my emotional intelligence, so I want to understand how what I'm saying is impacting you. Can you help me with that? Practice mentoring others so that they can rely more on others for leadership and support. Ask, kind of don't tell people what to do. Ask them, would you like my help? Or can I give you my opinion? Ask permission to help them. Notice when you begin to beat up on yourself, take excessive responsibility and lose trust in yourself. In other words, stop beating yourself up. It's not helping yourself. Just say, you know what? I'm going to trust myself, lose trust in yourself. I'm going to trust myself to just be the best I could be. Identify pivotal people who shaped your view of yourself and your view of others. Positive high trust and negative low trust. In other words, do you have trusting parents? And if you do, you're probably a trusting person. If you had distrusting parents, you're probably a distrusting person. It carries over behavior. So identify who you are today. Is that a result of what you saw growing up? Is this who you want to be? And if not, how can you change it? So you need to understand why you have become the way you have become. Notice the degrees you trust yourself in important relationships. Because if you don't trust yourself, then the relationship will never become deeper, because relationships are built on trust. But you can only trust others when you learn how to trust yourself better. Okay, so daily practices for self-regulation to build trust. Act as if you count. Get to know the people who are important to you. Notice your level of trust in relationships that are important to achieving your goals. When you are in a leadership position, practice delegating to others. Practice assuming the other's intention is positive. This is key right here. I want to go back to that. Hold on. Practice assuming the other's intention is positive. This is key. Most people say, I can't trust that person. I don't know who to trust. I can't trust anyone. If you're going to approach life in that way, you're never going to be able to build trust. You have to assume the other's intention is positive and go from there. I mean, don't be dumb about it and just completely let yourself trust everyone. But, trust that their intention is positive. If this person has a reputation or a track record of not being trustworthy, then that doesn't apply, because they've shown a track record. But if they don't have a track record, you have no reason to distrust them. So assume that their intention is positive. Daily practices to increase empathy. Practice acknowledgement of yourself, acknowledgement of others. Get to know your team members and everybody in your group by name. Practice building your ability to accurately tune into another, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Practice inquiry and initiate conversations. Really be interested in people. And practice listening without interrupting. Okay, so the next 3 slides, which I'm not really going to go through, but you're going to be able to have when you get the presentation, are the different capacities, the competencies like self-reflection and self-awareness, what we went through, the competencies that are associated to that, and then examples of demonstrated skills and behaviors in the workplace that you can practice that would help you reflect, that would help you build on those competencies. Okay, you'll be able to take this with you and really look at how you can practice these competencies by using these behaviors in the workplace. And this one, self-regulation and self-soothing and empathy, is another one, the last one. Okay, and with that, I think we're done. We're left with about 12 minutes for questions, Q&A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everybody, and that way you can ask questions if you'd like. Let's see here. Okay, so I unmuted everybody. If anybody wants to type in any chat questions, or if you want to go ahead and you can just speak up and ask a question if there's anybody there who wants to ask a question. Anyone? Is there anyone who wants to type in a question? Okay, there's a question here that says, how do you recommend addressing issues with a CEO? Well, if they have issues of not having emotional intelligence, then it depends on how close you are to them, and try and find who has their ear. In other words, usually CEOs have people they can trust that they listen to. Sometimes it's a COO, sometimes it might be senior managers. Find out who has the CEO's ear so that maybe you can talk to them, to this person. If you do have a relationship with the CEO, then you might want to recommend, go to them and say, can I have an honest conversation with you? And really you have to gauge on how comfortable you are on being honest and direct with them. It all depends on your relationship with them. If you don't have one, I do not suggest you go to them and tell them what they need to change. I suggest you go to someone who may have their ear. The other question is, how do you deal with sensitive colleagues? That is a difficult one. Usually sensitive colleagues are sensitive because there is triggered memories there. They have, things that maybe have happened to them. My suggestion is to, if you feel that it's something that is causing a problem, then you sit down with them and say, can I have a chat with you, and say, look, I'm aware that you are sensitive to certain things, and I want to honor that. I want to respect that, and I want to be sensitive to your sensitivity. So I would like to know, in other words, what you're asking them is you want to know what you shouldn't address, what you should address, if there's like topics they don't want you to touch, or what the sensitivities are around, so that you are aware and you don't violate them. So it's kind of like, what gets you upset, so I won't do it. In other words, because I want to honor your sensitivities. And if you do that, they will be less sensitive because they know you care. And even if you do the things that they're sensitive about, they won't take it personal because they know you're human and you may have just forgotten, but they know you care enough to sit them down and ask them what they're sensitive about so that you can work around that. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? I have another one here. What are good daily practices for improving empathy? Improving empathy is one of the most crucial elements that many people sometimes lack. But what's important, the good point is that you want to improve empathy, and that's good. I would say daily practices are when people are talking about a situation, ask them, more questions. Like someone says, oh, I'm not feeling well today. Say, why aren't you feeling well? Like really take notice, really try to understand why they're not feeling well or whatever it may be. Get curious, get really curious about why people feel the way they feel. And so, get curious about what's going on with them. It'll help. And once you do that, they will be like, wow, they feel that you care, and they automatically start treating you better and being kinder to you. And then you'll reciprocate that because it feels good, and you'll start building more of an empathetic relationship. It's mostly showing people you care. And if you don't necessarily care, it's being curious enough to ask questions that they start feeling you care. And then you start building that type of relationship. Okay, let's see what else. Any other questions here? Okay, I have. If anybody wants to, anybody, you can speak up if you'd like. Okay, here's another one. How do you deal with people who are not empathetic towards you? In other words, how do you deal with a person who's not emotionally, has no level, or low level of emotional intelligence is pretty much the question. It's very important to understand that some people just do not have that emotional intelligence. Some people don't care to build it. And I always think of them in this way. I always think of them like, I take the curious approach. I wonder what happened to them in their life that made them so non-empathetic. What it does, it causes me to empathize with them. It causes me to feel empathy towards them instead of judging them. It's like, wow, for someone to be non-empathetic, something major must have happened in their life. Or so I then feel for them, and it causes me not to feel judged in any which way, but to feel kind of more empathetic towards them, that it causes them sometimes to want to get closer or become empathetic because they don't feel judged. Usually people stay away because they feel judged or they don't feel safe. But the moment you give off that empathetic kind of energy, they start feeling safe, and they usually will soften up to you. Okay. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Oh, I find it hard to avoid wanting to placate people rather than really understand their feelings. Advice. No, and okay, so the question is, the comment is, I find it hard to avoid wanting to placate people rather than really understanding their feelings. Advice. I think that's a wonderful trait, that you want to understand their feelings, as long as you respect how much they want to share. So if, you don't have to placate them. If you really want to understand them, you say, I really want to understand you. And if they want to share more, they will. And if they don't, you have to honor and respect that, even if you don't understand them, and say, I wish I could understand more, but I'm having a difficult time understanding you. And it may be they may not be comfortable sharing more, and you have to honor that, because remember, this is about them, not about you. When they're feeling something and you're being empathetic, it's about them, and you can't make it about you by asking for more information, even if they don't want to give it to you. So you have to let it be about them and say, I would really love to be able to help you, but I can only do that if I can understand what's really going on with you. Would you mind sharing with me or giving me more examples of what you're talking about or how you're feeling? Asking for examples will help you understand. So ask them for that. And just, if they're comfortable, just continue to ask them to give you examples or to explain it in different ways. And if they work with you on that, then it's okay. But if they don't, and they kind of tell you, I don't want to talk about it anymore, it's important that you honor that and you let it go. Okay. Let's see, looking for other questions. We have 5. Someone there? Someone want to ask a question? Oh, I mean more in terms of making people comfortable at the expense of being honest or offering tough love. Oh, okay. In other words, you want to tell them the truth, but you want to make them comfortable. So what I would do, and this is what I do all the time, you ask them, do you want me to be honest with you? Because so when people are going through hard times and I see what they're doing to themselves, um, I see what they're doing to themselves, and I I say, do you, and they ask, what should I do? I say, do you want to know the truth? Do you want me to be honest with you? Because you may not like what I have to say. So I just want to make sure that you want me to be honest. And usually people will say, yes, I want you to be honest, which gives me permission to be honest. Now, I'm careful on how I say things because I don't want it to come from a place of anger. I do want it to come from a place of love and understanding. And so I tell them, it seems to me that you continue putting yourself in those situations. I don't know exactly why, so I'll give them honest advice. So ask them. And there's sometimes that people say, I don't want you to be honest with me right now because it's going to be too painful and I can't handle that. Okay, so I then don't say anything. So ask for their permission to be honest, and then you can tell them what you honestly think, that tough love. Here's another question. Please describe good ways of maintaining a good and emotional quotient in the workplace without colluding in a person's issues to the extent that productivity is compromised. I would suggest that if emotional, you basically, you ask them how they're doing, how, if they're going through something, and if they share with you, then you say, I may have some ideas to be able to help you with that. How about, can you hang around after work for about 15 minutes so we can talk about it? Or, if it's someone you feel comfortable with, do you want to go grab a drink after so we can chat? In other words, you tell them that you understand and that you could or want to help them in however way you want to, but you don't make it part of your workday. So what happens is they say, okay, great, that one is done now. You move on with work. So you don't get stuck in the solution at work. You actually move the solution to after work. Or do you want to chat about it over the weekend? Call me. But you don't make it part of work. Okay, so that way productivity is not compromised in any which way. Okay, I have time for one more question. If there's one more question out there, feel free to type it up in the chat box, or you can just say it.
Hi, Yasmin. This is Leticia.
Hi, Leticia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So thank you so much for the presentation and the webinar. I mean, this is some great stuff, and I've learned a lot myself. My question is do you have some recommendations on other, like, if I wanted to learn more about emotional intelligence and how to be an emotionally intelligent leader, where else can I search, or what are some good books to pick up?
Okay, so great question. So emotional intelligence, there are seminars one can take out there. There's some that are good, not so good, but I recommend anything that is developed or created by Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman is the creator and founder of the actual term emotional intelligence. He created that term. He came up with it. He's the one that did the research. He has several books out, like The Emotionally Intelligent Leader, The Emotionally Intelligent Workplace, The Emotionally Intelligent Parent. So he has many books on emotional intelligence. You can find YouTube videos on him for free where he's been captured like on interviews or giving lessons, like 20 to 30 minute videos on YouTube. Anything having to do with Daniel Goleman, just Google him and you can find tons of information online for free, and just watch his videos, the way he explains them, read his books, listen to his audiobooks. There is not an emotionally intelligent seminar that I can say, go to that one, that's the one to go to, because that is, really good. I don't know of any really public ones that are that good, but I would recommend anything related to Daniel Goleman to have you develop emotional intelligence. Okay, everyone. I think that's all the questions I have can take for now. But thank you so much. And feel free to, if you have any follow-up questions, you can email me at yasmindavidds.com. And I'll be happy to answer those questions. And I will forward the recording to Leticia. And everyone can have that. Have a great evening. Thank you.